Have you ever given your all to a place only to be tossed aside like yesterday's trash? I have. I once saved a company from the brink of collapse in just 24 hours. I brought in 45% of their value in a single day. And how did they thank me? They fired me because my boss fell in love with my wife. But this isn't the story of a loser. This is the story of a man who came back and made the whole world pay attention. If you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or are simply looking for the strength to rise again, then subscribe to the channel, comment below with something you'll never forgive, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. My name is Dortay. I'm 32 years old. My specialty? Working in silence and making the entire department hold its breath. I didn't come from a wealthy family. No uncle on the board of directors, no aunt pulling strings in upper management. I walked into the company with just one thing: survival instinct and a mind sharp enough to read every second of market fluctuations. For the past 3 years, I was considered the safety net of the sales department. When our biggest project nearly collapsed because our Korean partner pulled out, I salvaged the deal in just 36 hours with a handwritten negotiation draft. When the marketing department got hacked and lost all client data, I recovered the entire CRM, simply because I happened to have a personal backup on my laptop. I did more than my job description, thought farther ahead than my bosses, and made money for a company that was running on outdated fumes. Until that fateful day, Monday, March 4th. 8 a.m., I sat in the conference room, having just closed the biggest deal in the company's history, 45% of the quarter's revenue, in a single day. The CEO clapped me on the shoulder, smiling wide. "Dung, I swear, you're the kind of brother I never want to lose." I just smiled. I was used to it. Praise like that usually comes before the knife in the back. That evening, I came home earlier than usual, and I found out I shouldn't have. I saw my CEO's car parked in front of my house. My wife stepped onto the balcony, wearing a white shirt that wasn't mine, and my CEO stood there, not even trying to hide. Would you like the next part of the story to continue right from this confrontation? Betrayal and the boot out the door. I stood frozen in place, speechless. My wife, the one I trusted most, the one who stood by me through years of struggle and poverty, was smiling at him, softly, like everything we had was nothing more than a rough draft of a mistake. And him, my boss, the man who once promised we'd take the company global together, was now buttoning up his white shirt, looking at me without a hint of surprise. No shame, no remorse. He walked out the gate and stopped a few steps away from me. "Dortay, didn't expect you back this early." Then he smiled, as if this was nothing, as if this was normal. I didn't say a word. I just stared, silent. But in my mind, everything had become crystal clear. That 45% deal I closed, too good for him to keep me, but too dangerous for him to let me stay. The next morning, I received an email. Subject: termination of employment agreement. No official meeting, no warning, no clear reason, just one single line. "Thank you, Mr. Dortay, for your recent contributions. The company regrets having to make this decision." At the same time, I was locked out of the internal system. My work accounts frozen. The project I spent 2 years building was renamed and handed over to the assistant manager, the same one who used to ask me for template copies. I used to believe talent would protect me. But I forgot one thing. When you're too good, You make the weak feel threatened, and when the weak have power, you are the first to be eliminated. But the thing that hurt the most wasn't losing the job. It was losing trust. The woman I once called my wife now had her arm wrapped around the man who once called me brother. And worse, she didn't even deny it. Not a word of apology, not a single tear. I was knocked down, but I wasn't defeated. And they forgot one thing. When you throw a wolf out of the pack, it doesn't die. It learns to hunt alone. Reborn from the ashes, I lost everything. In just 72 hours, my job gone. My bank account frozen, thanks to joint loans under both our names. My apartment transferred to her in a fast-track divorce settlement. My friends half went silent, the other half turned away. I moved out with a single suitcase, no certificates, no old contracts, just a small notebook filled with strategies and ideas the company had once rejected for being over budget. I rented a 20-square-meter room above a small convenience store. The landlord was a kind old woman who didn't ask questions. She just said, "If you live right, that's all that matters. Don't worry if you're short on rent this month." That first night, I stared at the cracked ceiling under a dim yellow light and asked myself, who am I without the title, the salary, or the reputation? The answer came after days of silence. I'm someone who understands how the market works and knows how to turn it to my advantage. I started over, alone. I rewrote the entire business model I once knew, but leaner, faster, and more adaptable. I reconnected with people the old company had laid off under the excuse of downsizing. They were fighters, once discarded as unnecessary. I built a team of just 5. Each one had the same story: betrayed, cast aside, underestimated. We had no office, no logo, no business cards, but we had experience, grit, and absolutely nothing to lose. I named us Ashes 5, 5 from the ashes. We took on the jobs nobody wanted, clients my old company once rejected, projects so difficult no agency would touch them. Small businesses teetering on the edge of collapse, desperate for one bold idea to survive. And then, 3 months in, our first client broke their monthly revenue record by 320%. 6 months in, we were invited to bid for a nationwide retail chain, the direct competitor of my former company. I didn't take revenge with bitterness. I took revenge by becoming impossible to ignore. They said I was finished, but they forgot. The ones who get buried alive, if they survive, don't come back as the same person. They come back reborn. And this time, they don't need anyone's approval. Would you like help creating a cinematic ending monologue or a closing visual scene for this story? Nua. Ditch Sang Tieng An Chat GPT Janoi. Showdown. Old boss, new table. That day, I walked into the Interlux Hotel, a private summit for top players in tech, media, and finance. Executive class invitation. No one knew who I was. But when I spoke, the entire room fell silent. I presented a strategic model called Real-Time Niche Market Restructuring, an idea my old company had once dismissed as impractical and unrealistic. 30 minutes later, I stepped off the stage to thunderous applause. As I descended the final step, I saw him, my former CEO, standing beside his company's exhibition booth. Our eyes met, and for the first time, I saw it, a flicker of uncertainty. "Dortay, didn't expect to see you here." He gave a weak smile, subtly tightening his tie, a nervous tick when he's losing control. I nodded calmly. Small world. You didn't think I'd disappear forever, did you? I heard about your new projects. Good work. But be careful. Going solo isn't easy. I tilted my head slightly. No smile. I'm not going solo. I'm replacing you. He froze. I stepped closer, close enough for him to hear every word. You cleaned me out of your company, but you forgot one thing. I'm the only one who truly understood how it survived, and now I'm teaching your competitors how to kill it. And then, fate delivered. 3 weeks after the conference, Ashes 5 was named the lead agency for Linton Group's national media campaign, the direct rival of my former company. The entire startup world shook when they saw the Ashes 5 logo plastered across campaigns once tied to my old firm. Rumors spread like wildfire. Dortay's back, not as an employee, but as the guy who's about to bring the whole system down with a single keystroke. Then it came. A message. From him. Can we talk? Same place. Cafe on the 17th floor. I went. He was already there, quieter than before. Still in his expensive suit, but the fire in his eyes, gone. I was wrong. I know there's nothing I can say to fix this, but I still hoped. I raised my hand to stop him. You weren't wrong for falling in love with my wife. I don't care anymore. You were wrong for thinking I was just some software you could uninstall when I became inconvenient. But I'm not software. I'm the operating system. And do you know what happens when the operating system switches sides? He said nothing. I stood up, leaving him with one final line. I didn't come back to destroy you. I came back to show you what you lost wasn't just an employee. It was your company's last chance to survive. Not everyone who rises after a fall seeks revenge. Some just want to stand tall enough to never have to bow again. Not revenge, but becoming a symbol. 3 months after that meeting with my former boss, Ashes 5, my team was officially chosen as the strategic lead for the largest retail chain in the country. The same chain my old company had knocked on for 5 years, without ever landing a deal. I didn't have to say a word. My silence echoed loud enough in their boardroom. The name Dortay was no longer the ex-employee who got fired. It was the name behind a retail restructuring revolution. The strategist who helped dozens of small businesses rise from the edge of bankruptcy to become the next rising stars. Then, one day, I got an email from my former CEO, a request to meet, not because he wanted me back, but because he now knew I was the one shaping the game. We met at the cafe on the 17th floor, the former war room of the company. I arrived 5 minutes late, not out of arrogance, but because I was no longer the one who had to wait. He sat there, stripped of his usual pride, just a fading shadow of a power that no longer held weight. I know you hate me, but the company's in trouble. I thought, maybe if you came back. I smiled softly, not out of spite, but because once upon a time, those were the words I longed to hear. Now, they meant nothing. I looked him in the eyes and said calmly, I didn't come back for revenge. I came back to remind you. You once had a chance to keep me, but you chose to let me go, out of fear, envy, and selfishness. He lowered his head. No arguments, because there were none. I stood up and said my final words. I forgive you, but I don't forget, and I'll never step back again. If there's anything left you still want to hold on to, start learning how to value it before it walks away, like I did. And me? I didn't return to crush anyone. I came back to build what I was once denied, an ecosystem where the underestimated could finally prove their worth. Ashes 5 is now a startup platform valued in the tens of millions of dollars. But more importantly, it's a place where a single mother, once fired for being too distracted by her kid, is now our CEO. A deaf programmer, rejected by 4 companies, now leads our product development team, and students once deemed culturally unfit for corporate environments are now shaping a new culture, one where everyone is respected. I don't need praise. I don't need media headlines or fancy awards. All I need is results. And the result is this. I'm no longer the one asking for opportunity. I'm the one creating it. I didn't take revenge with bitterness. I took revenge by becoming the best version of myself. Because in the end, silent success is the loudest echo. To you, the one being underestimated, you might be betrayed, fired, pushed aside, but you've never truly lost, as long as you choose to stand back up. Don't let your wounds become a reason to stop believing in yourself. Turn them into fuel. Because one day when they throw you'll be standing somewhere they can never reach again. 2 years later, from fired to fearless. 2 years since the day he was fired for a reason no one should ever have to endure. Dortay is no longer the man who was betrayed, broken, or left with nothing. He has become a name that commands respect, not because of power, but because of the strength of rebirth. The comeback was never about a title. It was about vision. Dortay didn't return to become the CEO of some giant corporation. He doesn't live behind sleek glass walls or sit at marble boardroom tables. He chose a quiet life, in a small house by the lake, with the woman who came after everything fell apart, and stayed, because she loved the man behind the scars. Every morning, Dortay wakes up at 5 a.m., brews coffee, works out, and walks Nova, a rescue dog he adopted from an animal shelter. He doesn't chase the image of success as it's traditionally painted. He lives like someone who's once been kicked to the bottom and chose to rise without needing a spotlight. Ashes 5 became Ashes Network. What began as 5 discarded people is now a global network of over 800 members across 9 countries, a collective of individuals once labeled as useless, unfit, or untrainable. Dortay doesn't hire the best on paper. He hires the ones who've fallen the hardest because he knows those who've been knocked down before don't go down easily again. Every week, Ashes Network hosts mentoring sessions, skill-building programs, and startup strategy workshops, especially for people rejected by the market due to age, appearance, background, gender, or even a criminal record. A quote from Dortay's viral keynote speech: "I'm not here to tell you how unfair life was to me. I'm here to remind you, if I, someone who got kicked out of the very house I helped build, could come back and build an entire city, then you can rebuild your life too, brick by brick, from the stones they threw at you." Dortay no longer needs recognition. He doesn't need praise. He doesn't need the press. He doesn't need to be on television, because the real reward is the people standing tall again because of Ashes, single mothers re-entering the job market, young adults who once battled depression now finding light in their careers, and those who nearly gave up on life, now coaching others on how to rise again. I used to think success meant a big house, a fancy car, and a top position. But now I know, true success is simply living true to yourself. No bowing, no regrets, no need to explain. To you, the one ready to give up. Maybe today, you just lost your job. Maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you've just faced your 10th rejection in a row. But if your heart is still beating, if even one thought inside you hasn't gone dark, then your story isn't over yet. There's still a place for you in this journey, not to beat someone else, but to beat the person you were yesterday.